And that's brilliant. I mean, that's the way we all need to see everything we're doing, whether you're the mechanic working on the car that's going to allow someone to get from point A to point B to accomplish whatever their mission is, or you're president of the United States. We've all got a role to play. So I would encourage parents to just, don't limit the definition of leadership to being the person on stage or in front of the room.
From the Florida Parent Educators Association, home of the largest homeschool convention in America, this is the Not by the Book podcast. I'm your host, FPEA Chairman Suzanne Nunn, and together we will hear from guests who share their journey to who and where they are today. Each one of them at some point left the expected path, ripped the page out of the book that says, you have to do it like this, and made their own way. I hope these conversations inspire you as much as they do me. Today I'm talking with Rick Green, founder of Patriot Academy, whose mission, in part, is to equip and educate a generation of citizen leaders to champion the cause of freedom and truth in every sector of society. Rick and I have a great conversation about what it looks like to pursue your passions boldly and yet be open to seeing those passions bloom in unexpected places. Now let's dive into Rick's story. My putting it out there question is, what was it like to be a little boy Rick?
You're going to laugh at this, Suzanne. I know you are. And I don't know if I've ever told this, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever told anyone publicly about the first time I was a patriot. And so, we call our organization Patriot Academy, and I've always considered myself a patriot. My parents were patriotic. My dad got me involved in at least paying attention to what was going on in high school. And then when I went to college, I really got involved. But if you go all the way back, I think I was 6. Wow. And the only reason I'm thinking about this today is because we're moving to our Patriot Academy campus. And so we've been packing up 30 years of living at our home where we raised our children in Dripping Springs. And as I was packing up, no kidding, night before last, all the old, VHS tapes and and videotapes and no kidding, beta tapes.
Oh, wow.
And I came across a video of a play, not a play, it was a TV show. When I was 6 years old, we lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, and my mom was asked by the local TV station to do a patriotic July 4th special 30-minute, essentially, show. Okay, long story short, it was called A Young Patriot's Dream. Oh, wow. And I was the young patriot in A Young Patriot's Dream. And so in this play, we're learning all about the story of America. And we even did my mom actually did it, but the old, I don't know if you ever saw or listened to the Johnny Cash Old Ragged Flag.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Do you remember that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm in a park. I walk into this park and there's trash everywhere, and I sit down on the park bench next to, it's my mom, but in the play nobody knows it's my mom, and she starts telling me that she starts doing the ragged old flag, pointing to the flag and going through all those stories. Anyway, all of that to say, you could genuinely say that I was raised to be a patriot. And it didn't really come to fruition, of course, until, like I said, in college when I started doing the political thing and getting involved in races and started really questioning, well, what's it mean to be a patriot? And then, of course, I met David Barton and started listening to all of his stuff, and the rest is history. He really taught me what it means to be a patriot.
So, well, you really did start out young now that we were learning this. So
yeah. And you're familiar with ACE probably, the PACES, the ACE. So that's what we did when I was a kid. I was homeschooled, so we went through all the and so if you remember, or if you've ever seen the really old ones back when I was a kid, so this would be 45 years ago, it was all black and white, and the only color you had in your paces was, I remember social studies was green on the outside, and math was gray, and English was English red and science was blue? I think that's right. Anyway, that's it. On the inside, it's all black and white, man. They didn't even have color pictures till, I think, right when I was about 15 or 16, they started maybe coming out with color pictures. All that to say, they were really good about having patriotic stuff in there. I mean, I remember that as a kid. You learned to do the pledge, and you did, the stuff you used to do. And then we had little private schools that once in a while we were a part of, and, that they were very patriotic. So, yeah, I think, I was blessed. I mean, that stuff was instilled in me a lot as a young person. I don't think I really understood it till later.
But it was the foundation.
Yeah, it was the foundation. Yeah. That's right.
What about like your maybe middle school, high school years? Did you find yourself gravitating more toward some of these ideas or history, or, was any of that really kind of a bent for you, or did you have other plans for your future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was probably, I kind of went dark on that stuff at 14, 15. I stopped caring about any of that and didn't and then I started hating history in high school and college. It was boring to me. So even when I got involved in I mean, even when I was doing the political thing, the government class or history class was so boring. I always thought, I want to go do the practical thing, not the textbook thing. I want to actually be out there in a campaign or be watching what's happening with government. Yeah. So I guess you could say I lost that love of it for a long time there, and didn't really, I was drawn even academically, I was drawn more to math and science than I was to history or the arts or I'm still bad at grammar. I'm an author and I'm horrible at grammar.
We have people for that.
That's right.
So you were headed, when you went to college, you were headed for something probably totally different than where you
finance. I went to study my undergrad's in finance. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Isn't that crazy? And then I guess I didn't know I would go to law school. I thought I might because I did mock trial in high school. So having that, it was one of I played baseball and mock trial and pretty much tried to sign up for everything. And at least with mock trial, it was hands-on, it was practical. So you were walking into a courtroom, you're playing the role of a lawyer, you're doing the cross-examination of these witnesses. I mean, you're really experiencing what it's like. And honestly, I bet that, I never thought about it till this moment, but I bet that had a lot to do with why Patriot Academy is so hands-on.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like your bent and your interest was in the things that you could do and experience rather than things you read about. So
Yes, definitely. 100%. I know everybody's not wired that way, but I know for me, I enjoyed it more when I could actually do it. And then I think even for a person that really is into the reading more so than the experiential, if they can experience what they've been reading, it makes it so much more real.
It's a totally different level, of learning.
Yeah.
And it does, I think, really makes it just more real. So you went to college, you did finance, but you said that when you were in college, you started to develop some more interest in campaigns and things of that nature. What happened that drew your attention?
I went to a little college out in West Texas in a little town called San Angelo, which is a great town, West Texas, the oasis of West Texas, the only place with 3 lakes and the Concho River and all that. Everything else is dry and ugly. Anyway,
water.
Water. So I get out there and I was really just kind of trying to figure out what's my place, where do I get involved, and ended up starting a college Republican club. And my dad had always kind of, talked about, a lot of people talk, but not many people do. And so I wanted to do. And so we started this, believe it or not, put signs out all over campus, and 3 people showed up for my first meeting. I remember that. I was
that's encouraging.
Yeah. So three whole people out of this whole campus. And, but we got involved and we started working for knocking on doors for some JP candidates, Justice of the Peace candidates, and county commissioner candidates. And there was a governor's race coming up in Texas. It was Clayton Williams versus Ann Richards. And we got involved in that. And then Desert Storm happened. And so when Desert Storm happened, we had a bunch of our buddies that were in the military that were, going over to fight, and we just felt like, man, what are we supposed to do? How do we support them? What can we do? And so we're sitting around talking, and we said, let's do a rally. Let's do a candlelight vigil on campus. And so we threw this event, and first time I put an event together. So I'm learning at 18 years old how to do an event. 200-300 people came out, and we had this candlelight vigil, and we honored all of our buddies and talked about them, and some of their parents, some of them lived locally there, and they came. And I remember, man, like it was yesterday. This would have been almost 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember these moms coming up to me crying and just saying thank you for doing that for my boys. And that was an epiphany moment for me. And the take-home message for me was, if you skip class and work on the things that really matter, you can make a difference in life. So I skipped a lot of class after that. And then we turned around and did a big march from the college campus to the county courthouse. And we had, 1,000 people come out. And so that was fun to organize that. And so, I cut my teeth on motivating people. How do you get people to take action? And so at 18, we were doing those kinds of things on campus, and then we started going around starting other college Republican clubs at the other colleges around the state, and got real involved in the state college Republicans and different groups like that. And that was good baptism by fire, because it was really immersing in not just politics, but it was leadership, right? You were learning how to convince other people to take action, and you were learning how to organize and learning budgets for, putting on all the stuff, you're well familiar with. It was a good learning ground.
It is. It's a fantastic training ground. And were you bent toward leadership naturally as a kid and going into college, or was that something that you really had to learn by fire?
I would say I was bent towards it. I mean, I think, because even in high school, and when I say bent towards it, I think a lot of that was my mom and dad and how they raised me. I mean, I can remember driving with my dad on business trips as a kid and, listening to Zig Ziglar and Charles Jarvis and all of these people on, even as a kid, my dad was purposefully pouring that stuff into my brain and my heart. And so I don't know, this is a good philosophical question, right? I don't know the answer to how much of it is innate and, that was just how God wired me, and how much of it was my parents smart enough to put that in front of me so that I'd be drawn to it, and probably a balance, probably a little bit of both. Maybe they were feeding that inside me,
Well, that's encouraging to the parents who are listening, though, to know. I mean, I put you in front of my kids, right? So it's like I think that there is a part of that where you can see that, your children do have a higher purpose than just moving along through life. They need to think about those things. And when you couple that with putting them in front of people who are strong in leadership and understanding the ins and outs of what that means and what having that purpose means, I think it does just help to grow that in them more,
Yeah.
So I
think you use the right word there. It's purpose, right? Even more so than we use leadership a lot, but then people think that means I have to be the person at the front of the room, which is a misnomer, right? You can lead from anywhere in the room. You can lead from anywhere in an organization, but first you have to have purpose before, because then you got to know where you're leading people to. And I think that was a real epiphany for me in doing Patriot Academy a few years in, we were probably 7 or 8 years into doing it. I initially thought, okay, this is only going to be for the way I saw that word, leadership, and only for the people that are going to run for office or be at the front of the room, run the organization, all that. And I realized finally it clicked for me 7 or 8 years in. No, actually, every person is a leader from somewhere in their family or their organization. And so they all need to learn these skills. And it's really about finding your purpose and knowing that, I'll give you an example. My nephew, after a couple of years of going to Patriot Academy, he said it finally dawned on him that if he is literally in the warehouse moving a pile of boxes from one part of the warehouse to another because that's where it needs to go, that the motion of moving that box is literally helping to save the country because it's part of the overall purpose of saving the country that this organization's involved in. And for this day, at this moment, he's not in front of a room or in front of a group or being Speaker of the House or any of those things. He's moving that box because it needs to get moved in order for the movement to work. And I thought, man, that's brilliant. I mean, that's the way we all need to see everything we're doing, whether you're the mechanic working on the car that's going to allow someone to get from point A to point B to accomplish whatever their mission is, or you're president of the United States. We've all got a role to play. So I would encourage parents to just, don't limit the definition of leadership to being the person on stage or in front of the room, and make sure that you're always encouraging in your kids, find that thing that turns them on and gets them excited and gets their engine revved up, and they want to get up early and go work on that thing, or they want to go to that particular event or organization or whatever. Find those things that it just clicks for them because there's something inside of them that's drawn to that.
I totally agree. So, you started early in college, kind of finding your way forward. So, but you did get a degree in finance. What was the point at which you went from your degree in finance to active involvement for yourself beyond the college Republicans and the important things. And let me back up for just a second. When you mentioned Desert Storm, I too sometimes really feel like those moments in history, those moments that we lived through, and you were 18, 19. I mean, those things really have an impact on us and what we see happening in our culture, in our society around us, and in the world around us. And I think when you see that too, it heightens your motivation to get some of this stuff done and to find your purpose in doing it. And I think if I look back over the last, 100 years, I think you can see one of those moments in every generation, if not more, right? And so I think that there's a point too at which you have that hunger is in somebody to do something, have purpose, to save something, And I think that, that probably was inspired in you. And then you started to take things even a step further, right?
Yeah.
So once you got done with college, where did you move to next?
Yeah. And just one quick comment on what you're saying. I think that's so true. There are catalytic moments, right? That just is like, that's the catalyst for moving us in a particular direction. And you're so spot on, man. Every generation is, everybody that was alive during Kennedy's assassination, they know where they were at that moment. For those of us that were alive during 9/11, we know exactly where we were. I can see the room. I remember who I was talking to,
Oh, yeah.
There's just those big moments. I think most people probably feel that way about, the assassination attempt on Trump. I mean, that was probably the biggest moment of our last 10 years in terms of everybody going, whoa, what? And then, it begs the question, which is the purpose of why you do what you do and I do what I do, is then what do you do with it, right? Okay, we got a catalyst. Now we're motivated. Now we want to do something. How do we actually, get connected to the right people and get plugged into the right systems and get around other people that are also motivated, because you need people that are rowing the same direction so you can sharpen each other. And it's kind of like you and me, man. We'll pick up the phone and call each other. If you're down, you can call me and I'll lift you up and encourage you, and vice versa. And we're just to bounce an idea off. You need people like that in your life. And so, anyway, all of that to say, man, we've got those catalytic moments. Let's use them. For me, from college, it was law school in Austin, Texas. I went to this really liberal, ultra liberal town. Austin is San Francisco of the South in Texas, and coming from San Angelo, which is out in West Texas, conservative, to Austin was culture shock. But it was the best law school in Texas, and top 10 in the country, and all that good stuff. And so I knew that 50% of the attorneys in Texas were UT grads at the time, and it would be it's the best chance I had of being successful in my legal career. So anyway, I did it, but then I went every weekend to College Station, where Texas A&M is, because that was the conservative college, conservative town. So I was running from the craziness of Austin to
some balance there.
Yeah, but actually I only lasted 2 years in law school, and I started a business while I was in law school and started making money. And, I honestly did not like the legal crowd, so arrogant and just so pretentious. And it's just, me, I'm a country boy, I'm a simple guy. I can't, it was like, for me, it was so annoying, because all these people in law school just thought they were the bomb. I mean, they thought they were it. And here I am, very simple country boy, but intellectually I could spar with them all day long and no problem. But it was just so annoying and so obnoxious. And anyway, it was like every day everybody's trying to prove how smart they are. And I'm just going, okay, what a waste. So I literally stopped going to class. I figured out in law school that I was a visual learner, not auditory. So listening to it, I actually figured it out in college. I got out of college in 2 years because of this, because I was taking like 30 hours a semester, because I, again, didn't go to class much. But I figured out if I could read it and get good notes, then I could remember it, and I was really good at test taking. So in law school, I started going the first day, and I'd scope out who was there, and then I would find a buddy and get their notes and go back for the final.
Oh, wow.
So that was my good law school
planning.
experience. Yeah. So, and then I was off running a business the rest of the time. And, and anyway, so I ended up leaving law school after the second year and moving to Dallas. Kara and I got married, and we started running a business in Dallas for a while. And then when Trey was born, our oldest, we moved back, and I said, well, I don't want to practice, but maybe I ought to go finish the degree since I'm here back in Austin, because my wife was from a little town south of Austin. And I said, well, I'll finish, but I'm not going to take the bar. And and then I was almost done. They let me come back and finish my last year of classes, and I was almost done. And I read this article about a guy named Joe Jamel, one of the greatest attorneys in Texas history, and he had, on a bet, taken the bar before he graduated from college. And I thought, well, that sounds kind of fun. So I still had a couple class or two, I can't remember, left. I said, I'm going to go take the bar even though I'm not done, just to see if I can do what Joe Jamal did. But I'm not going to practice. I'm just going to get the license. So took the bar. And then after I got that passed, I was like, oh, might as well practice. So I only practiced for a couple of years. I mean, I still have my license, but I like doing constitutional law, and I don't like doing regular stuff. It became, if I could have been a litigator and been in court all the time, I probably would have loved that. Enough about my personality. I would have loved that. But I hated the grind of just research all day and the typical law practice stuff. And that was when I got asked to run for state rep, actually. I was, I had just graduated. I was 26.
Okay.
And I went to a fundraiser for the Republican Party of Texas, and everybody kept getting up. And all the state reps were getting up and speaking at this thing, and every one of them kept saying, well, we can't really do anything until we get 8 more seats. We got to get the majority. We don't have the majority. They had Republicans that had the majority in 150 years. And so by the end of this thing, I go to the back, and the political director for the state party, I knew him because I'd been doing all the college Republican stuff and helping candidates. And I said, hey, man, I just moved to Dripping Springs, where my wife's from, and, we'll help whoever the candidate is. What can we do? And he goes, hey, that's a great idea, Rick. You should run. I said, no, that's not what I said. But anyway, so he convinced me that I was at the right age, even though I thought I was too young.
Wow.
Because he was thinking, you can go knock on a lot of doors. And anyway, fortunately for me, my wife her family was fairly well known in the music industry in the area, and so I would do these events. You would have loved them. I would do these events, and they would sing. Their family would come sing, and they were so good I could get up and say my ABCs and win votes. I mean, they had the crowd, already with me, right? So
awesome.
Anyway, so I ended up winning that race and going to the legislature
because of good music. That's
it's good music. That's exactly right, man. If you got the good music, you can.
That's fantastic.
You know from doing your state conventions, it's like you got to have good music. Right. You got to keep people moving. You got to.
That's right. That's right. So that's great. So a young state senator, right?
Rep. I was
state
on the
rep.
House side.
Okay.
Yeah, they were too boring on the Senate side. It was rowdy on the House side. That's where I belong.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how long were you able to serve in?
I did 2 terms. So my first race, which was 1998, I ran against a powerful incumbent, Democrat incumbent, and lost by 20 votes on election night out of 30,000. Had a recount and won by 36. And so that's one of the reasons I'm such an advocate of paper ballots, because we were able to put our hands on every ballot, and both of us, both campaigns looked at every single ballot, and by the time it was over, I won. I looked at my opponent and said, hey, man, Texas law says you can have a second recount since it flipped the race. And he said, we just looked at every ballot. I'm not doing that again. You won. So nobody claimed cheating. Nobody claimed anybody stole it. We need to get back to that, where we have those paper ballots. But so I came in with a lot of fanfare because of that, because no race had changed on a recount in 20 or 30 years in Texas. And so we were doing a lot of interviews.
A little bit of excitement there.
Yeah, it was a little exciting. It was crazy.
Good. So you serve there now. How many kids do you have at this point?
We have 4. So 4 kids and, believe it or not, 4 grandkids.
Oh, well, not when you were 26.
No, at that time. In fact, I only had 1
you had
when
one.
We went in.
Okay.
Yeah. Trey was the star of the campaign, by the way. So when
when
we ran, he was maybe 20 months old.
Oh, perfect.
And we did this spot where he's sitting there with 10 or 12 of our supporters. Everybody's wearing green shirts because it was all green, right? So they'd remember my name. And Trey's in the middle, and everybody says vote Rick Green, and he does a thumbs up and goes, vote my daddy. Oh. And so then we ran that ad on television, and I'm just south of Austin, my district is, so we had to buy Austin TV to get the commercial running into our district. And so George Bush was governor at the time, and after I got elected, we had, in my first 30 days or so, all the freshman Republicans went over to the governor's mansion for breakfast. And as soon as Bush saw me, he goes, vote my daddy. He remembered that ad. He said,
That's
you had the best dad ever. Your kid won your race for you.
That's great. Well, it's fair to say then that your kids all grew up with a lot of education about how things run and work before there was a Patriot Academy, right?
That's right.
It was being instilled in them.
Yeah, Trey was, so by the time we got sworn in and everything, he was right at 2.
Yeah.
And he would go out on the house floor with me and just hang out with Dad, and he wear his cowboy hat. And he figured out, you've seen us do this at the Patriot Academies because we follow the Texas legislature rules and all that. But you know how we hold up a 1 if you're for something and a 2 if you're against it. He would walk up and down the aisle with a 2. And the Speaker of the House looked at him and said, yep, he's obviously a Republican. He's voting no on everything.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, I don't know some of the gaps here. So after you were done serving as representative and where you started and picked up with David Barton and moving into Patriot Academy, where did those things come into play?
I was actually at the end of my first term. David had come down and campaigned for me when I ran the first time. He did an event for me, and he was vice chairman of the party at the time, so he was part of helping to recruit candidates and all that. That was how I met him. Now, I'd been using all his stuff, right? I'd memorized. I had my University on Wheels, which was about 10 of his cassette tapes, which I also found the other night when I was cleaning out and moving. It was kind of funny.
Those are priceless now.
Priceless, man. Priceless. And for those who are listening and don't know what a cassette tape is, Suzanne will tell you later. Anyway, I was listening to all these tapes, and I'm memorizing all of David Barton's stuff, these stories and these quotes and all this, and I'm using it in my speeches on the campaign trail, and then after I won, as I'm going around the district, and so I'm speaking at this. It wasn't a dinner. It was a special event for the Republican Party of Texas, and his parents were there, and I don't know it. I had no idea who they were, and so I'm quoting all this stuff, and so they've both gone to glory now, but they used to dispute the fact that it happened this way. But the way I tell the story is that his mom went to him and said, "Hey, this kid's stealing all your material. You might as well hire him." So that's how I got to be with David Barton. So he came down, and I remember it, and I can see the room right now. We met in my Capitol office. And he said, I've never had anybody else go speak on my behalf, when he can't go. But he said, I'll give you a chance to do this if you want to do it. So it was a godsend because that was where my heart was. My passion is, teaching and speaking. And so when he gave me that opportunity, man, it just opened up where I really was supposed to be. I mean, the legislature was fun and interesting, and it's the right place for some people, but I knew after I'd gone out a few times for him and given presentations, I was like, this is what I really want to do with my life. This is where I'm called. And so that was actually, that was 2000, I think. Yeah, 2000 or actually it was early 2001. I think I just won my second race. And I remember when he asked me, I was an entrepreneur. I had always owned my own businesses, done everything. We ran our campaigns like a business. I'd never worked for anybody in my life. And so I wasn't sure I wanted to go work for him. And I remember praying about it. And it was like God said, humble yourself and go learn at this guy's feet for 2 years, and then you can do whatever you want. And that was 24, almost 25 years ago, and I'm still with him.
Wow.
So
that's fantastic.
He's the most Christ-like man I've ever known. And so I mean, to this day, I marvel at his application of Scripture and how he lives out God's word. And so he and Cheryl have just been amazing mentors to Kara and me both. Just incredible.
Yeah.
So
he's a phenomenal guy.
He is
truly. So you started working with him, and your family is obviously growing during these years.
Yeah. In fact, Kara was convinced we were going to have a baby every time I ran for office because we had Reagan, my second. So we had Trey as we were, running, and then, or he was already born when we were running. And then Reagan was born during or right after the first session that I was in. And then Cameron was born the next year during the campaign. And then Rhett was born in the next campaign.
See, that's awesome.
Or right after the next campaign. So we ended up with 4 pretty quick. They were all, it was 4 of them under 7. And it was fun, for them, it was kind of special, right? Because they got to grow up around, from inside the belly of the beast. And one thing I learned about families that are in this arena, if they're really deep into this arena, is one of two things happens. Either the kid becomes totally entitled and they think they deserve to be in a leadership position or whatever just because of their family name or whatever.
Right.
Or they realize they don't have the same almost like awe of the system and this desire to do anything to be able to be the guy or the girl, right? Like they don't have that. It's like there's just this matter of fact. That's part of our life. That's part of how the system works. And if that's what am going to be called to, that's what I'll do. And obviously, if you're raised in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, that determines which one of those camps they're going to end up in.
Right.
I mean, I can remember being at the Easter egg hunt at the governor's mansion one year, and you bring your kids to this thing, and they all run around and find the eggs and all that, and just listening to these kids be like, "So, is your dad a rep or a senator? Is your dad?" And it was just like nonchalant, like no big deal. So I tried really hard to make sure my kids knew, it's a blessing to be here, but it's really not a big deal. These people put their pants on the same way. There's no, they are not like this special anointing that makes them, a better person than anybody else. And so anyway, that I think was really important to instill in my kids. And we'll see what my kids end up doing. They're all very involved in Patriot Academy. They all work for Patriot Academy right now and are helping to run everything we're doing. But whether or not they ever actually run for office, we'll see. Because I don't, when you are that involved for that long, you also get a little bit jaded. I wouldn't say they're jaded, but they've also realized that we're making more of a difference outside of me, with me not in office. If I was one of 150 House members, I wouldn't have near the influence and impact I'm having right now, raising up thousands of people to run.
Right.
And I thought I wanted to be on Supreme Court. I ran for Supreme Court twice in Texas, a statewide race. Came super close both times, barely lost both times. And it was just so obvious after, I couldn't see it, but other people could, that's not where I was supposed to be. I'd be bored to death sitting in an office reading briefs all day instead of doing what we're doing now. But God used it. You know how it is. I mean, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And he used those races to build up Patriot Academy's recognition and build up interest in the Constitution, because I was out there everywhere speaking about that. So it all worked together perfectly for us to be where we are now, where now people are hungry for this kind of knowledge and training and being able to, do the Patriot Academy programs. We're positioned perfectly to hit that without having to create those things from scratch. And so God's timing's amazing. I mean, it's obviously perfect.
Yeah, and I think, too, a lot of the story that you're sharing just speaks to me about how important it is to lean into what you're doing right now and the lessons that you are going to learn there, the opportunities that you have there, because obviously you were fluid in your decisions about some of your future things. You didn't have one plan in high school and stick with that plan in such a, dogged fashion that you failed to pursue something that was really where you needed to be.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes, kids and teenagers, students can be guilty of doing that to themselves. But a lot of the time, I think parents can be guilty of kind of, sitting there on their kids and saying, no, don't do that because you've been working for years to do this, and I think that, if you had stuck with your business and finance and not leaned into some of the things you were doing strictly on the side at that point, we wouldn't necessarily have you and Patriot Academy in the same place that we do today. And
I think it's a lot of wisdom right there.
I think it's really important to hear those things, as we listen to people's stories and learn from them. So what year officially did you start PA?
2000.
In 2000?
First time we did a leadership congress was 2003. It took us a while we tried a couple times and just couldn't get it going. It took us a while.
Yeah.
Finally did the first one 2003. I want to say about what you just said though, because you just described how a man makes his plans and the Lord directs his steps, right?
Yeah,
because you're literally saying, we make our plans, whether it's high school or when you're 50, you got your plans and your dreams, but God's going to direct your steps. And if you've made plans a particular direction and he wants you to do something different, you need to be open to that and be willing to move. I think the Benham brothers describe it really well when they talk about having your dreams as in an open hand, right? Always keeping that hand open, where you can see it and you know it and you love it and you're driven towards it, but you're not holding on to it and saying, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. Yeah. Instead, you're saying, God, I'm going to do the best I can with everything I've got. I'm going to do Colossians 3:23, do the no matter where I am, I'm going to be the best that I can for you, as unto you, not unto men. But if you change my direction, if you redirect those steps, I'm more than willing to go wherever you want. And then the last thing to what you just said that's so important is enjoy where you are. Even, I mean, I had such a hard time with that in my 20s and even in my 30s. It was like I was always looking at the next thing and not enjoying the moment that he had me in, and not recognizing sometimes that even if I thought I had gone down the wrong path and quote unquote wasted a year or 2 years or whatever, he was actually using that to mold me and make me and prepare me for something that he had down the road. So I would say to everybody, both parents, whatever you're in right now, enjoy that moment, whatever it is, where you've been planted. It's like the book of Jeremiah, wherever you're, I know the plans I had for you and plans to prosper you, all that sounds beautiful, but they were going to captivity. And he still said, plant your gardens, marry your wives, have your children, be a blessing in the nation where you are. I think for us, we have to be a blessing in the neighborhood, in the business, in the organization, wherever we are, be a blessing to that organization and have joy instead of frustration. Oh, I wish I was doing something else. Have joy in what you're doing, and God will reward that and take you to whatever that other thing, desire that he's put in your heart.
Yeah. And I think too, we hold on to, sometimes there's the fear of that readjustment or that redirecting looking like failure somewhere. Yeah. And, it's not. I mean, we're in such a, achievement-driven society sometimes that it's not always valued when you see people that have the faith to take the moves and to adjust and, go down their own road and create their own journey here and their path there and whatever.
Man, I think we should embrace it. I think
exactly.
I used to do a talk called Freedom to Fail. I think, you're right. We have this achievement society where we, number one, we shame it when you have a failure, and number two, we try to prevent people from ever having a failure. So we create this safety net that is preventing them from learning. Right? Yeah, it's like bailouts. When you bail people out from bad decisions or the consequences of those decisions, they don't learn. You need the pain to learn. I was just talking with a guy the other night about this. Just when you have the pain, it makes you learn. And if we steal the pain from people and don't let them experience that, they're just going to make the same mistakes.
Right.
I think, and maybe as parents, we need to do a better job of being open about that with our kids. And when we have a failure, whether it's, a business that goes bad or we just do something stupid or whatever it is, that they learn, they watch us learning from our failures so that they will embrace that in the future, which makes you not afraid to try things and not, you don't live in fear. Instead, you're like, let's go. If I don't hit my dad used to always say, if you reach for the stars, at least you even if you hit the moon, that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you have given us a lot to think about and look at when you're talking about reaching for the stars, I think, because you definitely keep pushing, forward. And as long as I've known you, which probably is, I'm trying to think, when did I first meet you? Man. But as long as I've known you, you keep moving into the bigger space that God opens for you. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of being willing to fail, I think, to do that. So, but you started Patriot Academy 2003 or 2000, right?
Yeah.
And it's grown into this beautiful thing. But I mean, let's talk a little bit about Patriot Academy for those who are listening who really don't know what we're talking about. Just a little bit about your dream and your vision for that and putting feet to the ground.
Yeah, it started strictly as a leadership training for young people, 16 to 25, to potentially run for office. Like, that was our goal. I was so frustrated in the legislature with so few people actually voting their convictions or even having convictions, even knowing what the basic biblical principles of liberty are and how the free market really works and all a proper role of government, all these things that we would think are basic.
Right.
It was to instill those things in a fun environment where they're getting to be, it's kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. They're doing it. They're not just reading about it or listening to a lecture. They're on the House floor. They're in the committee. They're really living the life of a legislator and at the same time learning the worldview that produces a good society. And so that was the original vision and goal. And when we started in 2003, I was actually walking down the hallway at our campus the other day, and we've got these photo collages from each year. And, you look at that first one in 2003, and David Barton has dark hair. I have dark hair. There's like 20 kids there. That was it, That's awesome. And then you walk on down and you see 5 years later, it was ballooning to about 70 students a summer. One time we'd do one of them in Texas. And then 10 years after we had the first one, we expanded to Idaho and Arizona and had some little, 20, 30 people at each of those. And then we came to Florida and to Delaware, and now we're in Colorado and Indiana. And, it just kept expanding. And then we kept getting all these folks that were older than 25 saying, what about us? We want to do it. And military veterans specifically were saying, hey, we fought for this. We ought to be able to do one of these.
Right.
So we started doing a military veterans version of the Leadership Congress, and then our Coach Congress, which is anybody of any age. And then, the big change for us, I think, where we really exploded, I mean, we were clipping along pretty well and growing each year. But when COVID hit and we said, hey, we're going to give away our Constitution classes. We're gonna make this free for people to be coaches. We had just started the coach program, I think 6 months before that happened.
Right.
And it just went nuts, man. I mean, it went, you guys had a lot of people in Florida that signed up. Y'all sent stuff out, and some other homeschool groups sent stuff out. And we started broadcasting that these classes were free, and everybody was wondering what's constitutional, what's not. Can the government shut my church down? I mean, all those questions were coming in. And so that we grew 400% that year. It just exploded. And now we got Constitution coaches, 30,000 of them all over the country.
That's amazing.
Using those videos. And it makes it, then that gets kids interested in coming to the Leadership Congress, right? And now we're building the campus in Texas and creating a 1 week experience for people to come from all over the country and get to be just like we do in the capitals. But this is in our own, we now have our own house chamber at the campus. And they get to do handgun classes if they want. They get to do leadership training, Constitution training, legislative training, communication training. It's all about just helping citizens live out their freedom and be more effective at treating their neighbors the way they want to be treated.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know you have just recently had that built and open, but you're still doing the state ones in the summers, right? And what would you consider like your next big project here that you're working on, just establishing those things on campus there and continuing to grow in that fashion?
Yeah, we'll keep doing the like you said, the capital ones in those 7 capitals every summer. And then for the campus, the next big one is Independence Hall. We want to have that ready by July 4th, 2026. That's the 250th birthday of the country. So that's a big one. A lot of money, a lot of effort. But man, it's going to be absolutely incredible to actually have our own Independence Hall, and that way people can come and study the Constitution, learn that history, and it just feels, it's just a different feeling,
Right.
And so, we're putting a lot of effort into that. I'm hoping to break ground on July 4th of this year in 2025, Lord willing, and then cut the ribbon on it July 4th, 2026. Big party, 10,000 people out here at the campus. You better be there.
I haven't even got a chance to go out there yet. I can't wait, though.
You're going to love it.
But I like to, as we're wrapping up, ask you a question that I find that a lot of people's words and what we read and what we hear really inspires us. Is sometimes the words that are like in the back of our head motivating us to move forward. But is there a quote or something that someone's spoken to your life that has resonated with you and has given you a lot of encouragement along the way, or even now?
Man, I got to pick one?
Just one.
I always come back to Zig Ziglar's, you are who you are and where you are because of what's gone into your mind, and you can change who you are and where you are by changing what goes into your mind. And that has always, for me, said, I'm responsible for where I am, and if I change my inputs, my diet of information, as my friend Nicole Tice likes to say, if I change my diet of information and I get the good stuff in, if I'm saturating my mind in God's word so that I have so much truth that it's going to come out in everything I do, it'll change who I am and where I am. And in the same way, the authors that I read and the books that I listen to and the shows that I watch and that diet of information, it's going to dictate that. And this is true for our kids, obviously. I mean, we tend to have, especially in the homeschool world, a better handle on, being careful. Be careful, little eyes, what you see, right?
Exactly.
And trying to get the good stuff into our kids. But I think for us as parents, we got to realize if I'm 50, that I am who I am and where I am because of what's gone into my mind, and I can change who I am and where I am by changing what goes into my mind. And it's basically a modern day version of Romans and renewing the mind. And for me, that quote just always gave me hope that, hey, if I do end up down the wrong path, or I end up, creating bad habits or whatever it is, that there's always a way to redo that God has made our brains and our bodies and the way we're designed in such a miraculous way that his truths can wash over any evil and any schemes of the enemy if we're willing to focus and not just be tossed about by the waves, but to actually row and to actually concentrate, purposely choose our actions and our schedule and our days and our friends and our diet of information. I mean, those are all choices that we get to make, and too often we just let the circumstances of life, because we're so busy, control those things. Right. So taking the time to think about what's going into my mind, that and what am I putting in my kids' mind? What am I putting in front of them? And am I encouraging their diet of information to be something that's going to make them a little bit better today than they were yesterday?
I love that. I love it because it's full of hope, and I think that that's important. Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing everything with us and just taking time to get a little bit of your backstory in. It's always interesting to know kind of where you came from and how you got to where you are today. But
you're welcome.
But thank you so much, and it was a pleasure having you here today.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you for what you do, and for all the parents out there that are investing in their kids. You've heard me say it before, but when my mom was homeschooling me and people would stop her and say, "What a sacrifice," she'd say, "Nope, it's an investment, investment." Right.
So
and that's
true.
So keep up the great work, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Not by the Book podcast from the Florida Parent Educators Association. To learn more about homeschooling in Florida, or to find resources to help you on this amazing journey, visit our website at FPEA.com. If you have any suggestions for future guests, contact me, Suzanne, at notbythebook@fpea.com. Thanks again for listening, and be inspired to live your life not by the book.